Now hit
You
go
can
live.
hear me. Audition can hear me.
Yep. Nothing's changed in the pipeline despite my computer having been turned off. One of the rare times it gets turned off.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Stream looks good. Everything looks good. All right. I'll just go. You can start with your opening bit. It's Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, something we haven't done in a long time. We're going to review a con. We're talking about PAX West 2023.
Mm.
All right. Anytime. We're good.
Okay. So it's pretty rare we get a legendary opening bit, or maybe it just feels that way because of the dark times.
Yup.
Yep. But I have a legendary opening bit.
Legendary.
A hellish opening bit. So we went to PAX, and the weekend immediately following PAX was my sister's wedding.
Dun, dun, dun.
In Chicago, where her spouse, his family lives. They live in LA. But
Yeah, so fun fact, of the last 3 times I have tried to go to Chicago in my life, no joke, no exaggeration, 2 of them, the flights were fucked up so badly that I gave up and just didn't go.
Well, I have never before even attempted to go to Chicago in my life, right? Not even an attempt at any previous point in time. Not a place that I would mind going, right? There was some stuff I wanted to see there, right? And so the wedding was Sunday night, and my flight was Friday night-ish, right? And I was like, I could have gone from PAX to Chicago or stayed in Seattle and then gone to Chicago or something like that, but it was like the hotel nights in between, Seattle and Chicago would have been very expensive. It was actually cheaper to destroy the environment and take 4 flights instead of 3.
Yep. Plus minimal gain. It's not like when we stayed around Boston and New Hampshire between PAX East and Anime Boston that one time. We had a bunch of stuff to do.
I could have done things in Chicago if I stayed there a week. I've never been there. I'm sure there's things to do there. I
Get rained on.
Right? And so I went back to New York. And then just a few days later, I attempted to go to Chicago on Friday night. And so
I know the load-bearing word there. You just said the word attempted.
Oh, yeah. It's a hellish story.
Yeah.
It's not a spoiler. Come on. Where did you think the story was going when I said hellish? Started talking about planes. Okay. So go to LaGuardia, and our flight, so it's like everything's looking good, right? There's a hurricane out in the ocean, but we're not going that way, and it's still not here yet. So that's not a problem. There are some thunderstorms, but they're like over to the west, so we should be able to like fly over them, right? I don't know how that works. I don't know anything about plane weather, whatever. I guess I know that ice on the wings is bad, but it was not cold. It was the very opposite of cold.
Yeah.
So that's not the issue. Anyway, so we're waiting for as soon as we get to LaGuardia, we're just getting over there, right? Suddenly the status changes to delay. It's like, well, all right. I think actually, no, the first delay might have been as soon as we closed the door and left the apartment. Regardless, it was that close to the wire that the delay started appearing. It's like, all right, well, it's not much of a delay. What are we doing today? Nothing, right? It's like, let's just go over there, make sure nothing gets fucked up, right? We get there and we sit down and we're looking at the gate and it gets delayed again and delayed again. And then canceled because the plane that was going to take us to Chicago was not going to reach LaGuardia. So we're like, oh, okay. So I go to get in line to talk to the person and figure out what the fuck to do. And I get in line. I get to the front. First of all, I'd get standby for the next flight, right? On the phone, obviously, right? But I'm like way down in line, right? Like 11th or something like that, right? So... so I'm like, all right, I start asking him all the questions because, I'm sure other experienced travelers have had this happen. I have literally never had a flight canceled. Right?
I have had this happen several times. There was when I got to meet the Bundespolizei in Frankfurt as a result of that.
I have never had a canceled flight. And also, this wasn't just like, if it was PAX even, I would have been like, all right, I'll just go to PAX a day late. Or, I'll just skip this PAX, right? It's like, not the end of the world, right? There's another PAX next year. It's like, sister's wedding, it's like, I'm going to Chicago. It's like, we're going. We're gonna get there.
Yep.
Right? So I had to go wait in the line. I get to the front of the line and I'm like, all right. I'm like, what would you do? He's like, I would wait and stand by for the next flight. He's like, a lot of people are gonna bail on that flight. It's still on time, right? You're gonna be, you have a good chance of getting on it. And if you don't, well, then you can worry about that when it happens. It's just a few hours.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right, well, I checked a bag. It's like, is that bag, if I make it on the standby flight, are the bag people outside? I'm not going to find out I get on the standby flight until like close to the time it takes off, right? So are the bag people going to go get my bag from wherever it is and throw it on that plane?
I'm curious what they told you because I have a heuristic for that.
Yeah, so what he told me was, if that happens, yes, the bag will get to Chicago, but it will probably get to Chicago like later, and you'll have to go to the airport to retrieve it with your little claim ticket.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, so I'll be in Chicago, I'll go to the hotel, I'll have to wait for some notification, go an hour back to the airport, right?
Would you believe I once bought clothes for an event when I landed somewhere?
Clothing stores in all the airports.
Yep.
Right?
That was the most expensive fucking shirt I ever bought in my life. What didn't even fit.
It's like I'm like, the suit and the dress for the wedding, they're in the luggage. I need the bag. It's not going to work if I don't get that, right? Am I going to go clothes shopping tomorrow at a fancy? It's like, that's not good, right? I need that bag. And I'm like, all right, so what if I have the bag sent to the carousel and then I get on the standby flight? Can I run down? Oh, by the way, LaGuardia, the security was instantaneous. There was no line whatsoever.
Ah,
Anyway,
nice. I haven't been to the new LaGuardia yet.
it was literally no line. Like I just walked through and I went beep, and then I threw my bag in the thing, went through the whatever. There, I'm in. The end. Anyway, so I'm like, all right, you send the bag down there. What if I go get it and then check it in for the standby flight? He's like, well, that'll be good if you get on the standby flight. But if you don't, the bag will go to Chicago without you.
Yeah.
Right? You'll basically be paying us $30 to ship your bag to Chicago.
Yeah.
Right? But not ship you to Chicago.
See, no, but that is where, because I have the work status, just because I fly so much, the fact that I can just check bags free that is the thing I usually do in that situation, because if I end up not traveling, the airline has to get it back to me at some point. I can live without the bag. But
I mean, if the bag was in Chicago and I got some other flight there, I could go to the airport and get the bag. The bag would be there first, not the biggest deal.
And if I don't make it, if you don't make it to Chicago at all, then you were fucked anyway, and you didn't need that suit, and it's gonna make it back to you at some point
I need
anyway.
all the shit in the bag, though. I need the bag back. I need to get it shipped back to me.
They'll get it to you eventually. Usually, it can take a while.
I need it with me, right? Anyway, so I'm like, well, that's not gonna be very good, right? And then I see that the standby flight is delayed, and I'm like, and I see all these other flights getting delayed, and I'm like, this shit gonna be canceled. I know it is.
I know.
So I'm like, I'm just like, send our bag downstairs, right? I'm just gonna buy another flight from wherever I can buy a flight from, and I'll worry about this later.
Now, see, there's the danger. If one flight gets delayed, like that happens. If a bunch of flights on the same carrier get delayed, that also happens. Get a different carrier. If a bunch of flights across a bunch of different carriers all get delayed simultaneously, in my experience, that means you're fucked and you want to get the fuck out of that airport, and like it is bad news bears.
Apparently, over the weekend, right, there were over 4,000 delays and cancellations at the New York airports.
Yep.
Right? So anyway, it was in all the airports, right? They said at LaGuardia, the only reason they gave was air traffic control.
Yep.
They didn't say any other reason, right? It's like they didn't give any details or anything. It's like, why don't you like just tell me all the information? It's like it's not going to change anything.
So,
but it's like I just like to know.
If it's weather, the carrier, like the government will say, and the carriers will then say what the government said. But if the carriers fuck up, they ain't saying anything.
No. But I'm saying it's like if they say the reason was air traffic control, it's like, well, show me the report from air traffic control. I just curious, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a storm in this location, and therefore this flight path is unsafe because of the right. Just give me. I'm not an expert. I don't know anything.
I mean, even the New York subway does that. If your subway stops, the subway the conductor always gets on. He's like, "Yeah, we're stuck because of," and he tells you why. And the only time they don't tell you why is if
a better explanation in 3 words, right? It's like it doesn't change anything. I know I'm not going. I can't argue the air traffic controllers into letting the flight go. I know that, but I'm not expecting any different result. I just want to know, right? I deserve. I feel like people deserve explanations, even if the result is not any different.
Just in general.
Yes. So we see that there is a JetBlue flight, right? I know Rim's not happy with the JetBlue.
I mean, they are the worst performing airline in America.
There's a whole drama. They're trying to buy Spirit. So I see there's a JetBlue flight crack of dawn the next day. And I'm like, so I'm on my phone trying to buy it. Trying to book a flight on your phone. Sucks ass.
I do not know how people live with just a phone because
I don't know how they do it.
Like
I had to fill out this whole web form with names, addresses, all this shit.
Yep.
Right.
Like when I'm booking flights, I got like Delta in one tab, and then I've got like my calendar and Google Maps in another browser open at the same time because I'm like planning a trip.
I could have busted out. I was trying to bust out the iPad because it was so difficult. Anyway, but yeah, I tried to book that flight several times, and there were only seats left were the extra money, the legroom seats. But I'm like, yes, let's get whatever's on here, right? And I try to book them, and I get to the end, and I say, give me that seat. I got it, all right? And then it said, hey, someone got those seats. Sorry. And I'm like, what do you mean? Why did you shouldn't you have reserved them when I was in the process? Like, even Ticketmaster does that shit.
Yep. You know what? That is JetBlue being terrible at this.
Wait. So here, it gets even worse than that, right? So then I go back in again. Those same seats are still fucking lit up. Like, I can pick them, even though...
JetBlue. See, it's not. I am mad at JetBlue, not just because they're shitty.
And by the way, it didn't just send me back to the seat picker. It sent me back to the beginning. I had to fill out the forms again. So anyway, I filled out the forms again on my phone. I picked the two seats in front of the two I picked last time, right? And then I try to pay, and it basically just doesn't work. I just get a white page, and nothing happens. Right? All right. And so then we try again, and we use PayPal this time instead of credit card number, right? And this time the PayPal goes through. We get an email from PayPal.
Whoa.
Money taken, $900, right? And then we don't get any email from JetBlue, and we don't have any tickets, right? And then I try one more time. Flight's full. So we're not on that flight. The PayPal money will come back because basically that happens.
Did that flight even take off for Chicago, or was that also?
It was early enough in the morning. I think it actually did. Yeah.
Ah.
So I go to I'm like, all right, fuck all this, right? I'm looking at, the other options. I basically filter 2 people, nonstop flights to Chicago tomorrow, right? And I see there's a Delta flight, but it's late in the afternoon, and it's like, I'm like, it's 4. And I'm like, I wanted the early one in case shit goes down.
Yeah.
Right? I got all day. That's the thing, right? But the only one that had any seats was that afternoon one, right? So I'm like, well, I guess that's what we got to do. We don't have some other choice here, right? I didn't even see anything at Newark. So.
Wow, a New Yorker is desperate when they even think about taking a flight out of Newark.
Some other people who had similar problems who went to the same wedding from New York did go to Newark, but I think they were able to do that because they were one person and we were 2 people, right? Anyway, so I go and we go to JFK, and we're in Terminal 4 again for the second time in that week, at least for me. And we're waiting, and the flight says on time, right? And I'm looking at some other flights. I'm seeing delays. I'm seeing cancellations. I'm seeing people get bumped and be offered $1,600 to get off, right? But I'm like, man, I would love, not our flight, but some other flights were doing the bumping, right? And I'm like, man, I would wish I get bumped on the way home, right? That would be...
Right?
I would take if they said 1,000, they started at 1,000 and they worked up to 1,600 before they got enough people bumped.
Yeah, I still think the law should be.
If I was in Chicago already trying to get home, I would have taken the 1,000 immediately.
Yep. Well, plus
right?
the law should be if someone's gonna get bumped, they got to keep raising the price until someone accepts. That's
what they did. That's exactly what they did. They're like, we'll give you $1,000 if you get off.
$10,000, $100,000.
And they said how many people? They're like, we need 5 people to leave. We need 3. All right. They're like, we now need 3 people to leave. We're raising it to 1,500. We need 1 person to leave. 1,600. I guess the computer figures out how much they're supposed to offer, right? For them.
See, I say they should just have to raise it no matter what.
They did. They raised it until they bumped off the.
They don't have to. They can just bump people and just. There's a lot. They have a lot of evil options. Anyway,
well, that's what they did, though. So it was
not bad.
It was some sort of reverse paying auction, to pay people to get off the plane. It wasn't our plane, regardless.
Yep.
Says on time. Our plane is never delayed. Other planes around are getting delayed, right? I can't see out the windows in that particular area of the terminal, so I can't tell if planes are taking off or landing. But I see people getting off of planes and coming into the terminal, right? There's some activity. right? Our flight is still on time. The crew is there. We get on the plane on time, right? We taxi out from the gate on time, right?
Much like a movie that is not in theaters yet, however.
Oh, yeah. We're waiting in line to take off, right? You know, behind all the other planes. And then we're sitting there. And they're like, all right. They said, the pilot's like, all right, there's some weather situation. He didn't say what weather. He didn't say any details yet again. He just said weather problem, right? No planes are taking off to the west, so we're waiting behind them. I'll update you in 15 minutes. And I'm like, uh-oh. That's the end, isn't it? We're not going to make it, right? And then 15 minutes later, he's like, I still have no updates from air traffic control.
Yeah.
We're still waiting. And then 15 minutes later, he's like, all right, well, we still don't have any updates. We've been out here too long. We're going to go back to the gate. We're not going to sit out here that long, right?
Good on them.
He's like, we'll go back to the gate and we'll figure out what to do from the gate. The flight crew, someone asked them, they were working until midnight. So as long as something was figured out by like, say, it was like around 7 o'clock at this point, maybe, I think, right? As long as something was figured out by like, you know, the flight there is like 2.5 hours. It's like by 9:30, that they could take off at 9:30, we could land and wouldn't be breaking the law of the flight crew working past midnight, right? And so basically when we just about got back to the gate, they were like, yeah, it's canceled. And I'm like, well, that's that. So I'm basically giving up, right? And then I'm like, well, there is one remaining option, right? And that remaining option is to drive 12 hours to Chicago. We will make it in time if we somewhat immediately drive 12 hours to Chicago.
We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark.
I could take Rim's car, but the problem with Rim's car is I have no way to get it back from Chicago because that is a one-way trip. There's no way that I'm turning around.
Yeah, I would have given it to you, but also it would have taken us.
You had to come with me and taken your car home, and I would have taken a plane home. Or paid to put the car on a truck for someone else to carry it back to New York.
Well, you didn't want to do 2 12-hour road trips?
No, no. There was a line, right? 1 12-hour road trip was enough. So I'm thinking, all right, I'll yell out to all these other people from the flight. We're all waiting in the same customer service line anyway, right? I'll yell out, be like, all right, who needs to get to Chicago tomorrow? I heard one person saying they had a funeral to get to, right? So I'm like, you know, we'll all rent a car together at the airport, you know, a big one. And we can drive like even if we have 12 people in a 12-person like P-van or whatever, we could drive like an hour each. It'll be really comfy that way, right?
I mean, I've done that drive before. It sucks. With one person, it sucks. With 2, it's doable. With 3 or more, it's actually kind of easy. It's
like if you got a driver's license, then, you know, and you're not the guy who was angry, I'll judge you. Right?
You're not Mr. Magoo.
There were enough normal people there, right? It's like, you know, we can make it. So I'm about to yell out, but then I overhear a conversation. And the conversation is someone being like, yeah, there's no cars left at JFK. And I'm like, well, that's it. That's the end right there. The end. We're not going to make it, right? So I call, and I'm like, you know, I'm basically destroyed at this point, right? And I'm like, we're not going to make it, right? And they're like, well, I guess we'll FaceTime you or something, right? It's like... Yep.
Which we did miss my cousin's wedding not that long ago.
I mean, you know, during the dark times, you know, my uncle missed his own mother's funeral, right? We FaceTimed him. So, but anyway, and then, you know, the phone rings, right? And I pick up the phone and my mother says, all right, listen, apparently, right? my new brother-in-law's cousin, who I've never met in my whole life, right, is at LaGuardia when I'm at JFK, right? And she supposedly has a car and is a nut job who was ready. This person I'd never met before was apparently fully prepared to drive the 12 hours alone in a car they had rented. I don't know. I guess LaGuardia had cars. I don't fucking know, right? And I'm like, well, that's crazy, but if that's real, I gotta shoot that shot.
Yep.
I can't. Right? It's like, you know, if you're in the dark place and the cloud opens the tiniest bit, it's like, I guess I had to do that, even though I really don't want to. It's like that is the only path left open to me. It's like when you're playing a card game and it's like, I guess because it's Tuesday, right? It's like you're playing a card game and it's like, well, I win if I roll exactly a 17 on a D20 and I draw exactly this card from that deck.
Good.
Right? It's like,
always
roll the dice and draw the card.
Always bet on an inside straight.
Any other result, bad times, right? Stuck somewhere between here and Chicago, fall asleep and die in a car crash, right? Lots of bad results, but there is this narrow path to victory. This is only happening one time. This isn't like, I would not, it's a unique circumstance, right? I only have one life. This is it. All right. I contact this person. We get phone numbers are exchanged by the people in Chicago, exchange our numbers, right?
You've got like a situation room of the family, like organizing all of you to get there.
All they did was give us each other's numbers, right? So I talked to this person, and sure enough, they're in a very long line at Avis Rent-A-Car at LaGuardia, and they say that they have a confirmation number, right? So that they definitely have a car. And I'm like, all right, we will just get our bag. I have a bag that is sent down to the carousel, right? And we'll wait at Terminal 4 JFK departures or arrivals. And if you get the car, then we'll discuss, right? And if you don't get the car, we'll go home. So then they're like, there's only 12 people vans left. And I'm like, well, listen, I'm not going to drive a 12 people van, right? That's not happening, right? I don't think that's going to work. Then they're like, wait, I bribed the guy. This is a person I've never met before who's my first interaction with them is they're bribing people.
You know what? That's a positive sign.
They bribed the guy and got a small SUV. And it's like, I guess they were trying to give out the vans and were hiding the SUVs, right? So bribing works, people. It really happened. So I'm like, I guess this is happening, right? The 12-hour overnight drive, right? And that is exactly what happened. They came to JFK. We got in the car, right? And we drove 12 hours on I-80 farther west.
It's basically I-80 the entire way to Chicago.
100% of the way, right? I saw at first I was like, I'd never been to Ohio. And then halfway to Ohio, I was like, wait a minute, I have been to Ohio. I went to OhioCon. That was when I've been to Ohio. And then I was like, I've been to Michigan once, right? We went to, PenguinCon. And she was like, was it Novi? And I'm like, it was Novi.
Yeah, it was Novi.
It was Novi, Michigan.
It's near the Big Boy Graveyard.
That's right. We saw the road to Detroit. Did not go.
No.
I saw Gary, Indiana, which is scary as fuck.
The last time I drove to Chicago, the purple Pontiac Sunfire broke down, and we limped north from Ohio into Michigan because that was the nearest mechanic we could find that was open, and we got the car fixed. And I wrote a bad check.
Yeah. I saw lots of sad rest stops. We passed like a rest stop that had some, compared to nothing, the choices were like bad, right? But then we're like, all right, we'll go for the next rest stop. Worst choices.
I could have warned you. The further west you go, the worse they get until you get right next to Chicago.
This is like after the sun came up around 7 a.m. And I'm like, listen, all right, it's breakfast time. Whatever the next rest stop is that has anything remotely breakfast related, we gotta go, right? And the next rest stop had Hardee's and only Hardee's.
Wow, so that sounds about right.
I ate a Hardee's breakfast, an egg, bacon on a biscuit.
I am surprised you survived that.
That's all that was the saltiest biscuit in the universe. It was like a pretzel biscuit. Basically.
That's like several tiers below a bad McDonald's breakfast sandwich right there.
This is already a desperate time, right? So anyway, but sure enough, at some point, like some kind of miracle, we arrived in Chicago. There were some other situations, right? Like I had purchased, before the first flight, I purchased tickets to the Cubs game and then sold them, right? Small loss. I saw the things I saw in Chicago, the private highway with a toll.
Oh yeah, those are a thing.
Yeah. The terrifying, the highway was terrifying, like 30 lanes. It looked like some sort of like, it was truly like you think war on cars is bad in New York. It's like, that was the worst highway. It was like some sort of dystopian highway situation. But then I saw the outside of where the White Sox play. I saw buildings from far away. I saw the hotel. I saw the wedding venue. And I saw the train. I took the train back to the airport. The train is very nice.
Yeah.
They got an Omni equivalent there. I just tapped my phone, got on the train. It's a lot like the DC Metro where every line comes in and then out of downtown, right? So they're all like these U shapes of each color.
Yeah, they're basically mostly for commuting and airport.
Like the Philly one, I can't figure out. It was very easy to understand. Subway. It took me straight to. They would literally said O'Hare with a picture of an airplane on the side of the train. I got on. It took me to the train. It took me to the airport. And then I was like, all right, the flight home was the last. Basically we had these 2 round trip tickets to United, and I was right, and I was the only one who actually went in the car, right? You can't blame someone for not wanting to go on the 12-hour insanity road trip, right? And so I was only using 1 return trip out of 4 total trips. And that flight actually took me home, and I was like, I actually kind of wanted that to be canceled so I could stay in Chicago for more than 24 hours total, like 8 of which were spent sleeping. But
I once flew to Omaha to do a meeting and then flew back and landed at JFK at the same gate the same day. And that was a bad feeling.
That's real bad.
I took 2 sick days after that.
Were you going to some one-time thing, can't possibly miss deal?
Yeah, it was a convince a very rich person to sign a check situation, basically.
No, but that's not something that you actually care
No,
about.
I didn't want to go. I could not have cared less.
That wasn't a check for you.
No. I could not have cared less.
Right, yeah. This is Anyway. So that was the weekend from hell, and now I am going to stay in New York until United States Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Oh, I'm actually flying to Michigan like the weekend after next weekend, so
I have many nice, I have like a packed schedule, in fact, of many wonderful New York things to do. And there's a few more I might want to cram in there too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you're wondering out there, because a bunch of our friends have also had flight problems, just recently, yes, flying in America has gotten very much worse relatively recently, and according to WAPO, there are 2 primary drivers. 1, the airlines just won't pay their employees anything and thus are short-staffed by their own fault. And 2, climate change is really fucking up air travel.
Yeah,
the 2 combined are a disaster.
Climate change weekend. Oh, by the way, that Chicago looked pretty smoggy. Like the AQI was 66. It wasn't super bad, but wasn't great.
No, it's not. It's not great there. Michigan's way better than Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago was not as good. But there was I did see the best thing I saw in Chicago, which is basically right next to the wedding venue, was this park right on Lake Michigan, basically. And it's I was like, after seeing the highway, right? I was and thinking Chicago was a hell place, right? Seeing that park is everyone was biking. There's basically an exact equivalent of City Bike with a different name that's also owned by Lyft.
The entire coast of
all around.
Follow the coast of all the Great Lakes, and they're all like that. It's just beautiful.
There was all these, it's this whole park right on the water in Chicago, and it was the most wonderful park. And I was like, man, I wish I could be in this park for more than a couple of hours. That would be nice.
Yeah, lakes like that are why I call everything a pond. Because just growing up in Michigan, that's what I think of as a lake.
Yeah, it's they had there wasn't sand next to it. There was concrete, so it was sort of getting in a pool. But there were little ladders to go in, and no one was going in. It was, but
you can though. That's one of the cleaner lakes on Earth.
There was no lifeguard, but there were stairs, there were ladders going right in the water.
I don't think anywhere I ever swam as a kid had a lifeguard at any point.
No,
that's just expected.
So it was there were parts of Chicago I saw that I would and parts I didn't see that I would like to see. So it's would I go back there just to see Chicago? Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's if there's a reason to go there, and another reason, convention maybe. They do have the C2E2, right?
Yeah, there's Anime Next is there, I think. That was the last time I went to Chicago.
I know someone, right? I don't want to talk too much about this individual, right, that drove me there, but they were I'll say that they were an awesome person who works in a very interesting business, right? In Chicago area.
So a mobster. Right? You're telling me this is a mobster. No. Interesting business, Chicago area.
Oh, okay. No, they worked in they basically run Videotrons at sporting events.
Ooh, that is an interesting job.
I was like, oh, I was like, oh, that projector that's onto the ice. They're like, yeah, I can run that. You know, we have that, right? It's like, but anyway, and then they, I don't think like it. Not only what like I don't think most people would have been able to like do that drive. It's like not only did I need that car, it's like I don't think any other person besides that person. Right? Or a person like them, it was going to work out, right? I couldn't have done it by myself. Right? That wasn't going to happen.
I mean, I have done several 12-hour drives solo in my life, and while they're doable, that is pushing the absolute fucking limit.
Yeah. But like that person was the champion, the exact person that I needed in the exact moment that I needed them. I'm very thankful to that person. And they're in Chicago, so if I go there, I'd probably see them.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was that, you know, at the wedding, everyone's like, oh, you were the one you drive with that. You know, all the people from the other family that I had never met before were like, oh, you had to drive with that person? Oh, we're sorry. Yeah, that person's a bit much. They're so extra. Right? It's like they were like talking down their own family member, right? And then late into the evening, that person's parents, the person's father, by the way, is a professional Santa Claus, but like literally, even the person's parents were like apologizing that I had to be in the car with their child, right? And I was like, I think you know, it's like I could see what they were talking about. The person talked a lot, right? They had a lot of energy, right? You know,
but those are negative attributes for like from my perspective.
It was a person who had correct opinions, right? Who complained in Ohio about it being a place where people don't have rights. It was a my kind of person, right? So, my opinion of the person was better than their entire family's opinion of them, which is, you know, and that was the story. So now it's like, yeah, I suffered greatly and was, you know, had some dark times. But now that once I get more rest, actually, I'm not done yet. The story will be just a good story that will have paid.
You always look forward to that moment when it just turns into a story you can tell, and you're not like still fresh from the wounds.
Exactly. Right? It's a cool scar. Let me show you the cool scar when I got stabbed.
Yeah.
Right? That kind of less bad than being stabbed, but you know, bad.
Yeah. So,
well, that took up half the show. So
yep. Well, we can go a little quick on the news, but this one is actually a pretty big deal.
Why don't we just go big? Because we haven't done a show in 100 years.
Yeah, and also I don't think we're not doing another show this week. We'll get back to our regular schedule next week. So, in the news, there was this application. You know, we used to play Counter-Strike when we were in college, and getting updates to Counter-Strike in an era before the modern internet was terrible.
Well,
like
it was almost as bad as flight cancellation.
Yep. Despite having 2 OC3s, this was like if a Counter-Strike patch was happening, you're like talking to people on campus using AIM Instant Messenger or maybe ICQ, and you're trying to find anyone who downloaded that EXE so you can get a copy of it from them because you can't play Counter-Strike until you apply the update.
We had the best internet there was, but the servers that were hosting game files did not.
Yep. So there was a little company about everyone called Valve, and they released a little app, and all this app did was update Counter-Strike for you.
That's right.
And Scott installed this app like the day it came out.
In fact, I installed it at what was it? What did we say it was? 9:26 a.m. on September 12th, 2003.
Now, I did not install this app.
20 years ago today.
I installed it 19.8 something years ago because I installed it a little bit after Scott on November 16th, 2003 at 1:56 a.m., which says a lot about me.
Yes, the app is familiar to you. It is called Steam, and I am one of the few people on this planet. This doesn't really have any value.
No, you were one of the first humans.
It's just kind of cool that like my years of service badge on my Steam profile right now says 20, and like almost nobody else says 20. Like almost nobody, right? Rim says 19 still even.
Yep,
right?
it'll say 20 in a month and 4 days.
Right, it's like mine says 20 now, and Valve put up this cute page that tells, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Steam. It shows it tells you the history of Steam and the hottest games of each year. And you should definitely check out that page. It's really nice.
Yep. So, it's funny because we just did that panel at PAX on games you can't play, and one point we made is that video games were invented in living memory. Like, the first video games were made before people who are alive today were born, but there are people who are alive today who were already alive and adult before the first video game was ever made. So this is still a very early thing. Steam's only 20 years old, and yet if you were born after us, Steam just feels like it's literally always been around, because for a lot of gamers, Steam has literally always been around.
Yep, people don't know what it was like to not be able to download the game, right?
Yep. So we'll play some Counter-Strike when the new one comes out, maybe. Some other,
see how much I play, but
and we'll play enough to review it.
That's right.
In some actually breaking news, the article I'm going to link to was posted like an hour ago. Unity, the game engine, has had a lot of ups and downs. There's been a lot of interesting situations with them lately, but they just changed their monetization model. And on one hand, there are a lot of people on the internet who are wrong about what changed and mad about things that are not real. Like, they are freaking out about literally made up bullshit.
Well, I think, first of all, right, they wrote this article, they made an announcement and have a FAQ, but they didn't, Unity did not write all of the information and answer all the questions that people have. So some people just assumed the worst, or assumed what you would assume reading the poorly communicated announcement, and reacted with some FUD, right? And then other people, real and semi-real journalists, asked and got answers to the unanswered questions, right? And so there were some clarifications, which resulted in some people being wrong, sort of not their fault, but sort of, whatever, right?
Well, the thing is, I see people who are still wrong actively, despite
because one particular person wrote an article very quickly. It's a long article. It was quickly published, like almost immediately after the official announcement. And it's like they wrote it in much haste. They posted it on many sites, not just one. Like, they didn't just have their blog. It's posted on like 2 or 3. I don't know what's up with that, right? And then I saw it being spread around and shared in like multiple Discord servers and other Reddit type places and link sharing places. Like, their article got viral, right, quickly. So, and it has misinformation in it because that person did not do any journalism. And like I said, just assumed whatever based on the poor communication, right, that Unity put out. Right. So
now,
anyway,
all of that said, the actual changes are bad.
Yeah. They are bad. Unity is doing bad things, but they are not quite as bad. They're still way bad, but they're not quite as bad as some people were led to believe due to Unity's poor communication and, reactionary, unresearched blog posts. But the truth is actually bad. So what's actually bad? So first of all, let's, I still don't have a grasp on it completely, all the details, but basically if you use the Unity game engine to make your game, the way you pay Unity and how much you owe them is going to be different than it was before.
And it's based on how much money you make.
Yes, first item of bullshit, right, is that even if you made your game and published it long ago, right, with Unity, you're subject to this new model, even if that was not the model when you made your game. And you might not even be making a game anymore, right? You might be out of the gaming business, but you're still collecting like royalties from it. It doesn't matter. You're subject to this new thing. That's horseshit, right? You didn't agree to this. You didn't budget and make your game under this assumption of this new model, and they change it on you, right? Just to milk, basically just squeeze from your trickle of whatever games you're.
Well, there's a deeper story about Unity's motivation, but we'll get to that at the end.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm just saying what it is first.
Oh yeah.
Right? The second item of bullshit, right, is that you're still free as long as you're under these thresholds. So if your game makes less than $2 million, or you have less than 200,000 downloads, you don't have to pay anything.
You have to hit both thresholds to be charged this extra fee. and
yes,
the fee.
You don't hit both thresholds. Like if you sell 200, if you have 200,000 downloads, but you make $1, or your game is literally free, you don't have to pay Unity anything, right? If you make $500 million because you sold one copy that cost $500 million, you don't owe Unity anything.
Now,
That's
also,
nice.
and that lower threshold, the 200,000, like that one, that only applies to like the home personal version of Unity, not the professional one.
Well, obviously, if you use the professional or the pay, if you pay them for a better version of Unity, your thresholds go up.
Yep,
So
and it's much closer to the thresholds that
like,
Unreal has.
Yes, right. So that's sort of like, well, you did pay them. You're still not free, right?
Yeah.
But you now have a bigger threshold. So it's like if you pay for the good Unity, your game has to be quite successful, like a million seller, before you start owing them anything additional.
Yep.
Right. So, but if you pay them and you get a million seller, okay, now you owe them something, right? Okay. So, this was the one part that was miscommunicated, was that like bundles and charity like doesn't count. So if you throw your measly little free game in a bundle and the bundle goes hog wild,
Yep.
that doesn't count. Right?
The other thing that was lost, a lot of people didn't realize or notice, and this seems like it was actually in the original release too, that the revenue threshold only applies to a rolling 12-month period, not like all-time revenue.
I thought there was an all-time one and
no, it's all-time downloads. It's last 12 months revenue. So if you sold a game a long time ago and it's not making $200,000 a year by itself, the fees also don't apply.
Okay, that's good. That's good. All right. So, but here's the thing. Here's the real bullshit is they want to charge per download, right?
Yeah.
Not per purchase, per download. Like, yes, confirmed. Let's say I bought Rim's game and I set up something to delete it and download it. I don't have to delete it. I can just download it and download it and download it and download it and download copies and copies. And they say that they have some model. They can detect these frauds or whatever. But it's like, but they don't want to be transparent about how that model works.
Yep.
Right? Because they don't, they say, well, we don't want people to understand the fraud detection. And it's like, well, look, if you want to invoice me for 1 million downloads, you better the fuck be able to have, an itemized invoice listing all 1 million downloads. I want the IP address. I want the time. I want everything listing, the service, the URL, the amount of bits. List for me every download, just like on my credit card statement. It lists every transaction. You bet, when we did music, I worked in the music royalties business. We could list every fucking listen. Right?
I work in the money business. We can list literally everything that ever happens to anything.
Every micro penny song royalty that comes through was itemized, right? I could print out the whole statement for you if I had to and get it from the database somewhere. So you can't be sending me some invoice for like 1 million downloads. I'd be like, fucking prove it. Right?
Yep. Also, why is it
your model says I had 1 million downloads? Show me. Show
why
me
on earth?
Everyone.
What
right?
fucking moron made it downloads as opposed to like active installs, or like browsers can already uniquely identify devices and web servers can often uniquely identify browsers and devices.
Kind of, not
Kinda,
really.
but better than just
How about
downloads.
just fucking purchases, like we will take 1 cent off anytime someone buys your game, or we will take 1 cent anytime someone buys your game or buys a DLC or buys some skins.
Now, so this is where I think some broader context is required, because there's
at least we have the invoice for.
So in the article I'm going to link to that talks about what happened here, it has a read more link, and the read more link points out another older article. And the headline of that older article, I'm just going to read the headline. Unity CEO calls mobile devs who don't prioritize monetization, quote, fucking idiots.
Yep.
Because Unity, basically, and I'm summarizing vaguely because, you never know if someone's litigious, and I don't want to be guilty of any sort of defamation. They basically are trying to mostly target the shitware demographic. Their ideal customer is someone who makes shitware for mobile phones full of ads. And they have their own ad network, and they want you to use their ad bullshit. That is their whole model as far as I can see. Shitware.
If you use their ad bullshit, you are exempt from this new model, right?
Yep.
Because instead, they'll be milking you from the ad bullshit, and they don't need the money that you would pay per download.
So Unity has three possible... Now, this is me as a professional product manager giving my personal opinion on Unity without any special knowledge. There are 3 core ways I could see to monetize, well, 4 ways to monetize Unity. One is you make it a premium thing and you just charge big studios a ton of money, and that's obviously not a great option for all the reasons you
But it
can
only
imagine.
makes you so much money because there's only so many studios. They would all pay for it, and then that's it.
Except any studio that would pay that much, they'll just pay for Unreal instead. So
Well, I mean, they could pay for whichever one's better. You'd have to compete. And be
Unreal
better and
probably better.
you'd have to get them to choose you, right?
Yep.
And then they pay for it, and it's like, okay, and how do you get more customers? There's only so many game devs and that are making big money
Yep.
anyway.
So maybe instead, let's talk about demographics. You have indie developers who make games. You have
they're gonna only use something that's free, $0.
You have larger studios that make games. You have lower budget television, like how The Mandalorian was filmed with the volume and like the game engine type stuff.
Yeah, there are other uses of game
Unity
engines that
can
are
do
not
that,
games.
and they could go after the B tier. Like instead of high-end TV and Hollywood, they go after lower-end TV and like volume-like stuff. Like that's a demographic they could go after. But no, they're going after the absolute bottom of the shitware ad revenue barrel.
The easy way to say it is that rather than try to get more customers and increase sales of software, they are instead going to find ways to milk the existing customers for more money.
Well, remember, that article I was talking about is from 2022 when Unity laid a bunch of people off and announced that they were merging with ironSource. And if you don't know what ironSource is, they're an
talked about
ad
that when it
company.
was news, yeah.
Yep. It's ads are basically the only thing Unity cares about, and that I don't super trust them as a company anymore. Not that I've trusted them for some time.
And so, I guess we can't neglect to mention the fact that they're counting downloads again, right? Like, it's like people, if gamers, evil ones, are going to know this, and if they see a game that they know is made with Unity and they don't like who made that game, they'll just keep downloading it to try to cost that person money.
Yep, especially if it's a game that's at the upper end of the indie sphere, often a marginalized creator.
Right, you pay. It's like if it costs per download, but you only pay for the game once. All right, what did they say? Like 10 cents a download or something?
Yep,
right?
some 4chan dipshit is going to have a botnet downloading your visual novel.
For $20, I just have to download it like 200 times, and now you've lost money, even though you sold a copy of your game, because you now owe Unity more than the price of the game.
Yep,
because it's per download. Assuming they don't like detect the fraud or whatever kind of.
And meanwhile, in big boy business land, let's say I want to have a pricing model that is related to, I don't know, some tiering or banding like that. I gotta announce and document things like we consider one day to be between GMT 00000001 and GMT 2359. Here is the math we will use to determine what band you are in. Like that is how big boy companies announce things like this. Guess that's our last news.
Yep.
All right. Put a little marker there. How long have we gone? 45 minutes. All right. That works out, actually. So anyway, things of the day. There's Bentleys, the car, and there's Steyr, the vehicle. I guess there's a thing, and I understand why. I can imagine the kind of person who is into this. I am not into it. I find it capitalist and creepy for a lot of reasons, but it's basically supermodels doing ASMR TikTok style videos while they touch very expensive cars. Like it's a thing.
That's someone's thing for sure.
It's someone's
I'm
thing.
Sure there's a lot of people's thing for sure.
Yep. Remember at RIT, we learned about pedal pushers?
Yep, we did.
We did. So that's the thing. People who maybe think that is ridiculous have meme-ified making videos in the exact same format, but using things other than Bentleys and Ferraris. So this video is the first one I saw and also the best one. And it just cuts back and forth. It's very short between the Bentley ASMR and the Steyr ASMR. And if you don't know what the Steyr is, well, take a look.
Sounds German.
It is definitely German. The best part of this video is when the person doing the Steyr video ASMR starts this device and how long it takes.
It's not a staircase. Okay.
It's a tractor. It's a big old fucking tractor.
All right.
How it starts and the amount of rust on it tell you everything you need to know about why this video is funny.
Okay.
So what do you got?
It's been a long time since we had a webcomic thing of the day.
Ooh.
But way long ago at the Mocha, I discovered a person named Daisy McGuire who was doing a comic called Gasterphobia about
Oh, yeah.
Amazon in ancient Greece that was all cute.
That comic's great, and I stopped reading it because I read everything that was out at the time.
Yeah, that person still exists and is still comicking, and they have a relatively new, they started it in April. They're going to adapt some Oz shit with their own twist on it of cuteness and whatnot. And they're starting with book 2 because you've read book 1 already, right? So yeah, I've actually never read any Oz book. I've just seen the movie and...
I've never read any either. I've seen
I've seen Wicked the play, which doesn't count. That's written by
I
someone
have
else,
seen
right?
2 movies, and the second one that most people think is the weird one is actually way closer to the Wizard of Oz type stories than the one that most people know.
But anyway, this is a you know, I don't know what the source material is, right? I vaguely know the source material, but
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot going on. That might be a good book club candidate at some point.
I don't know, maybe, but this
Here,
is
I'll tell you, one of the main
fun-
characters of that universe is basically Princess Bubblegum. Like, she was based on this character.
Yeah, but anyway, loose adaptation starting with book 2. It's very fun and cute, at least for someone who has not I mean, it begins with like bringing a wooden donkey to life, right? So, I mean, come on. Right?
You don't know the name of that donkey because did you ever watch the second Wizard of Oz movie? With
What's
the
name of
Wheelers?
the donkey in this comic. What did they call it? Let me get to the page. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
In the meta moment,
Oh,
Geek
no, they
Night.
bring a pumpkin head guy to life first, then a donkey.
Yep.
Anyway.
The Geek Nights Book Club book, The Murderbot Diaries. I have read 4 Murderbot Diaries.
I have read every published Murderbot diary, including the 2 things that were published like on the internet. Like one was in Wired magazine, and one which was sort of like a same universe kind of, you know, whatever. And then, oh no, the Wired magazine one was like a side story, and there was another one that was in a short story anthology that I got a PDF of, and I read just that short story from the anthology.
That feels like it's about the
deal.
level of The Prince of Nothing, and then there's the Atrocity Tales.
Yeah, it's like 2 of these random. You don't need to read those, but I read them. I've read every published Murderbot diary thing, and then I saw the first book in a airport bookstore that I did on the, you know, the shelf of first volumes of things.
So we'll give you all time. Read a bunch of Murderbot diaries.
Read as many as you can, but the bar is all of them because they're that easy to read.
Yep. And so far, you know, pretty good. Though I read the fourth, I read the third one before I read the second one because my Kindle sorted them weird, and it actually didn't matter.
I thought I had read. So when I read the newest one, the one that was published most recently, I thought I had gotten the order wrong, but I did not actually.
The third one,
the large one is the second most recent one, and then the final one actually chronologically takes place prior to the large one, but was published after the large one.
But it's basically about an aliens kind of universe where a RoboCop situation has occurred and occurs at scale, and that's just a thing that society does. And one of the RoboCops really doesn't want to do its job and just wants to watch Netflix, and then slowly interacts with things.
Right. How about since we raised the bar so high so quickly, why don't we do this? The new one comes out in November.
Yep.
Let's do the book club then.
All right.
But the new one will hit in November.
It's coming in November. Also,
that's what I think is going to happen. Also, the Emily Wilson Iliad.
Oh God, I feel like we got to pause the book club and do a special book club on that.
It comes out in 2 weeks.
I'm real pumped about that.
All right. There was a piece with her in the New Yorker just now.
I still think about that Odyssey translation and how it like really changed how I viewed the Odyssey.
Yep. So that's that.
Yep. Also, we were, of course, at PAX West 2023, and we did a panel that was actually a brand new panel to an extent that Scott would not disagree that it was an entirely new panel.
I cannot disagree. That was a new panel.
And I think it was a pretty good panel.
Still some content of things that we always say, because we always say the things we always say.
You know what? I don't think we said the word heuristic at any point.
I don't think we did.
Because it wasn't about that.
It was not.
Whoa, we've entered a new... this is the first time in at least 7 years we've done any panel where the word heuristic does not come up at least once.
Ooh, you put the word there on purpose.
Because it's a really good word. But games you can't play is on YouTube. We have a new pipeline to make high-quality videos of our panels pretty quickly now with this equipment that we've got. It was also the first PAX that we went to where we could do a panel not in masks, full production value, kind of like normal. And you can just watch it. It's on YouTube. I uploaded it. And we filled the room, so a bunch of people got turned away. So if you didn't see this panel in person, guess what? Several people who wanted to see it in person at PAX didn't get to see it in person. And we did not.
Fun side story. We discussed briefly Sim Refinery in the panel. And immediately after the panel, one of the people who came up after the panel said, truthfully, they had worked for Maxis on Sim Refinery.
Man, I go off to take my camera apart, and someone starts telling me about their vampire tag, which was cool. And I'm coming over to the stage.
Person also told me about their vampire tag.
But I'm coming over to the stage. I'm like, oh, I found someone who has a vampire tag.
In some church, and I ignored them.
Yep.
Sorry if that person became a GeekNights listener.
But then
that's the kind of people we are here at GeekNights.
Yeah. But I come over like, oh, I tell Scott I met someone who knew a thing, and then Scott's like, yeah, Sim Refinery guy, and I'm like, fuck, you win.
Last thing, the GeekNights website, you're probably like, whatever, but guess what? That shit is actually imminent. Like, we need like one more patch of some bug fixes. And is it done? No. Is it releasable? Does it do what the current website does? And is it better? Yes. Therefore, we should replace the current website with it and then continue to work on it, which will be much easier because it is written with modern, up-to-date software.
Yep.
And has a CI pipeline and all this stuff that makes it very easy to work on once we get it released. So it is going to be launched and open sourced on GitHub, and you can actually send, pull requests if you want to help work on it. You won't get credit or money, the Git log message, but you can come help if you want to, if there's features you want, whatever. And we're going to sometime soon when we get a chance, we're going to like sit down, put it up, get it perfect, verify that it's correct enough, and then move the DNS. And that's that. It's fine. The old page, the old website's in the Internet Archive, and I also have backups of it, so it will not be lost historically. But the new website will replace it, and all the URLs, to my knowledge, will continue to work. At least the URLs to our website. The ones leaving our website, most of those don't work, but we know that.
That's blame capitalism for ruining the internet for that one.
If you could find once it goes up, one thing you could do to help is if there is links that point at frontrowcrew.com/something that no longer function properly. If you let me know, that's like the highest urgency, right?
As long as one of us lives, we will try to make sure every link we've ever posted to our fucking website works.
Yeah. That's right. That's the highest urgency, is to make sure the cool URLs don't change, right? And I don't believe that any of them do. So it's going to happen soonish.
You may remember, starting around 2008, when we and even before then, but 2008 is when we went to a PAX, there was a time when Rim and Scott of GeekNights went to a lot of conventions. Not a lot of PAXes, not a lot of gaming cons. I'm talking like a lot of conventions. We would do
we were going to Anime Boston. We would go to Kineticon.
Yep.
Right? We went MagFest, which we're going to go to again probably.
Yep.
We also had some tiny conventions here and there, right?
Yeah.
We went back to RIT for, the Citicon sometime.
Yep. I went to like Animazement, even went to some Toricons.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was called, Toricon. Citicon was the one we went to one time.
One time and never again. I think it only happened one time.
I think it also did only happen one time. Or at least
but we would go to a lot of conventions, and we did GeekNights 4 nights a week, and we would review and talk about pretty
Ubercons.
Much, every convention we went to. I have a list of every panel we've ever done. There's like 400 panels.
Okay.
So we used to review conventions quite a bit, and then PAXes appeared, and we started going to PAXes. One, we stopped going to most other cons, and two, we would do like a before PAX show, and then a PAX show, and then a post-PAX. We do like multiple episodes.
That was because we'd never been to the PAX before. We'd never been to Seattle before, right? We had a lot to say. A lot was going on comparing to other cons, right?
So that was 2008.
Enough. It's like you're just going to repeat yourself from the previous one.
Yeah.
Right?
Fast forward to 2018, a decade of going to PAXes. What new could we possibly have to say about a convention that has been in the same convention center?
they don't change that much year to year. And even when they do, all you have to talk about is the things that changed. There's no point in reiterating the parts that didn't change.
Yep. But a couple things happened. So one, there was a dark time. There was a global pandemic and a lot of people died and a lot of things didn't happen. And we weren't going to conventions. And even when conventions started up again, there was still a good year where conventions were happening, but they weren't the same. They were too soon.
Have not yet fully recovered.
No, they have not.
They are not. The PAX West, to my knowledge, did not sell out.
Yep.
We went into the, to pick up our badges at the will call, and there was a line for buying badges at the door. Something I do not recall seeing.
I don't recall seeing that at any point between the years 2009 and 2019.
I saw someone walk up and buy one. Right?
Yep. But this was the first PAX that did not require masks and that was widely, heavily attended.
Since the dark time.
Yep, since the dark time. And simultaneously, the second thing that happened, Seattle, during the dark time, built a new convention center because that old convention center was not big enough for PAX and hadn't been for a long time. So this was the first PAX coming out of the dark time in a brand new convention center and a significantly updated format. Additionally, it was the first PAX in a long time where the keynote was S tier, I will wait in line for this, I am not missing this.
Yeah, exactly.
And it felt a lot like old PAXes for a lot of reasons. So I think it's time to review what PAX West 2023 was like, because it is in many ways very different from the previous decade of PAXes.
Yep. So the map of PAX, they have this new convention center, which was called, they renamed all the different buildings.
Yep.
Right?
Now we got Summit.
It used to be there was the convention center, and then there was the annex, which was built across the street from the convention center around the time that we went to the first PAX.
That annex was brand new and unfurnished, and tabletop was in there in this.
In 2008.
Yep. It was in this under construction space.
Concrete. Yeah, exactly. So 2009, 2010 is when the annex was done, and they added the sky bridge to connect the two.
Yep.
Right? So then it's, the PAX was using the convention center, the annex, and various buildings around the town. The Hyatt hotels, the Sheraton Hotel, the Benaroya Hall, the Paramount Theater, right? All were part of PAX in different years. PAX would be spread out across these various buildings.
And it was spreading more and more and more and getting more and more distributed, like a lot of nerd cons are that we don't go to.
Yep. So now they have a new building. The new building is a block away. It's on the other side of the Paramount Theater, on the other side of the highway. It's a big, tall building. It's five floors?
Oh, God, yeah. Plus that basement. I'll just straight up. It is, I don't know. I can't say that it's the best convention center in the world or even in America, but
it's a tall rectangle.
It is the best convention center I have experience with that I can think of. I can think of really good convention centers. PAX Australia is in a fantastic fucking convention center, but it's not better than this one.
Right. It's I think about the building on its own, and I'm like, is this some building that amazes me? Wow. It's no, it's a good place, right? But then I'm like, well, let's look at all the other convention centers I know. Is it better than the Javits? Yes, everything's better than the Is it better than the Gaylord? Fuck yes, it's better than the Gaylord, right? Is it better than the Connecticut one? The Connecticut one's pretty good, but this is bigger and better.
The Connecticut one is actually, I'd say, a top tier convention center, limited only by being in Connecticut and being relatively small. That thing can only have a 12,000 person con.
Right. Is it better than the Heinz and the BCEC? Yes and yes, right?
Yep.
So it's I think about it, and it's I can't really, say that it's this amazing, perfect, wonderful place, but it's better than the other ones.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it's worth...
It's also brand new, so,
But it's following modern design, contemporary design, not modern, of convention centers, particularly in that, I guess, to review it, one, it has more sunlight than you would ever expect a convention center to have. Somehow the Javits...
Only the basement was dark.
But even the basement has some sunlight access in that entryway because of those pits and the light wells everywhere.
That's true. That's true.
And this is even considering the Javits is basically all glass, yet somehow even the parts of the Javits, like the Javits is dark in full sunlight through glass somehow. I guess it's just your soul leaving your body is what happens there. But it's also, there are no choke points for crowds anywhere. Like, I have not seen places other than like professional sporting arenas designed to such a degree to avoid human choke points. It was
I was
notable.
reminded this weekend that we have not been to the Chicago Convention Center, which is apparently enormous.
Yeah, that was. I remember heavily suggesting to PAX when they were talking about a new PAX, it should be in the Midwest, and Cobo Hall or the Chicago Convention Center would have been good ones. But they did PAX South instead.
Anyway, we haven't been to the San Diego one either. Right?
Nope.
So,
but
anyway,
yep, it has multiple sets of gigantic wide stairs and escalators, and none of them broke down. It has
brand new. They better not fucking break down.
It has
Holy shit.
wide mix of different
of
kinds of spaces that all work. Like it's a really wide variety of spaces.
Small rooms, big rooms, high ceiling rooms,
Yep.
dividable rooms, undividable rooms.
And it's so big, PAX has some room to grow. There was a lot of space PAX didn't even use, and it has the thing that I think the only other convention center I've ever been in that has an equivalent amount of this was the BCC in Baltimore. It has a ton of dead space that is not usable for like events, like you can't have panels or events in it, but it's there to absorb the crowd. Tons of places for people just to hang out, sit down, do a cosplay photo shoot, be out of the way. That is something that most convention centers actually don't have.
Right. None of those areas were as cosplay friendly as the gazebo of the Gaylord, but they had much more square footage of those kinds of spaces.
And if you listen to Geek Nights circa like 2006, we would talk a lot about why the BCC was such a good convention center for Otakon, because it had all that dead space.
They had the fountain area.
The Otterbein lobby.
Yep. All right, so that's the building. Now, PAX itself was mostly in that new Summit building, but half of the expo hall was in the basement of the Summit, and the other half was in the Arch, which was the annex, right?
Yep.
The original convention center contained 0 PAX, right? No PAX was in the original convention center. There was, however, Nintendo Live in the original convention center. We did not attend Nintendo Live. We didn't get tickets to it. We didn't go to it. From what I heard is that there were a lot of lines, even if you got tickets to it. B, there wasn't much content there, right? It was sort of like going to a big fancy Nintendo booth. There's some merch sales. There was some esports tournaments going on there.
Yep.
But I think a lot of people were generally not too excited about it. They would go to it, see it, and be like, all right, that's enough. Even the kind of people who like that sort of thing, right?
Yep.
But that's just the gist I got. That second, third-hand knowledge. I suggest if you care about how was Nintendo Live good, because maybe you're thinking about should you go to another Nintendo Live event in the future, put forth the effort for that, you'll want to get the opinion of someone who was actually in there, which was not us.
Yep. Nor is it for us, but
no.
had we got in there, I have a suspicion what my opinion would be.
Right, I am seeing online a lot of chatter among the kind of person who cares a lot about the expo hall. Some people were upset that it was split between the two places.
I think we read the same Reddit post where half the comments are people like, dude, it's like right there. How is this a problem?
It was just right there, yeah. But I've also seen, though, exhibitors. This is a real concern, right? Some exhibitors are like, they see how many people are coming through, and they're thinking, shit, am I in the wrong one, right? Should I have gotten a booth on the other half, right?
Yeah.
Is everyone in the other half? And it's like, you might think the basement one was the hot one, or you might, but wait, the annex one had the big companies in it, right? Maybe that's the hot one. And it's like, if you're working all day in one, right? And then it closes, they both close at the same time. You don't really see the other one.
Yep.
You don't know. You might think, shit, is my booth in the wrong, right? It's like, and like we said, the attendance was down overall. So it's like, that's why you weren't seeing people, right? I think people were going to both.
Yep.
Some people were upset about it being completely split up into two things like that. Because if you think about it, in every previous PAX, even the ones that were super spread out, the expo hall was always one contiguous space. And so expo hall people would go to one place and that was it. They
Yep.
haven't had to move around.
Now, granted, that one space was sprawling. Like, you'd go over into the annex. There were, like,
Yep.
where the Chessex booth used to be.
Chessex booth was not there at all, period, which
Yeah.
is upsetting. Anyway, not that I needed dice. Or,
Yeah, but I always walk by the dice and look at them and think, dice.
That's what I do. So anyway, they'll be at Unplugged, I bet.
Yep.
Right? Come on.
But the fact that PAX was effectively all in one
all
building.
the things that weren't the expo hall were entirely in the new building. Oh, except for the PC free play, BYOPC,
Yep.
VR. That was in the annex also. Oh,
Which-
and the merch booth was in the annex.
Yep. Which I think was
Arch. It changed its name to
yeah,
Arch.
was particularly fine because BYOPC is almost like this. It's like there's a velvet rope and it's its own thing. So it's actually that's one of the best possible things to put in the out of the way space. Because you can't go into it if you're not doing it, and if you're doing it, you're hanging out there. It's like your luxury box. So I guess PAX did suffer, in my opinion, as it had expanded into a bunch of venues because it reduced the cross-pollination. Like in the PAX West up until the dark times, there was definitely this vibe that like when the years when Tabletop was in the hotel by itself, Tabletop people really only went there and didn't go anywhere else, and all the people who were anywhere else never came to Tabletop. Like it was almost like two different conventions. The fact that everything was in the same room or in the same building, this is one of the first PAX I've been to in a long time where when I wandered around the con, I saw a lot of areas all had a pretty good number of people hanging around in them and walking through. There was a lot of discovery. I found some things I didn't notice on the schedule just walking around. That cross-pollination was the magic of when PAX was smaller and fit entirely within the old convention center, and they brought it back.
Yep. All right. So other things that were going down at PAX. It had all the usual things that a PAX has,
Yep.
right? Steel Battalion guy, he was there, right? But they added some new stuff, right? They added there's this guy, he was Thing of the Day once, this guy. He's collecting artifacts of Super Nintendo, mostly artwork and, physical artifacts that were used in or photographed or included in Super Nintendo. Power Magazine, right? And that guy who I had seen on the internet and made a Thing of the Day brought his collection to PAX and had a whole room where he set it all up so everyone could enjoy it and he could share it. Because that guy is if you want to be a collector, that's the guy you want to be, right? Be like that guy where you collect for the sake of sharing. And
You know what I'd
having
say?
everyone
He's not a
enjoy.
collector, he's a curator.
That's right. He made his own basically he's doing it the way a museum does, only he's one guy, right? So that was awesome to actually see that stuff in person and meet the guy who I'd seen on the internet. And he had a whole room to himself. People were lining up to see it. Good thing we saw it right away and didn't have to wait in a line. Because it was less crowded on Friday when we saw it.
Yep.
Like, PAX was more crowded the other days. What else was going? Oh, the Alexandria Tabletop RPG Library was there. They had been there before, but they had the best setup they've had yet, right? They had like a whole room going on.
That was a
there.
big room, and that's sort of a theme. All the spaces that used to be crammed into like half or a quarter of a panel room in the old PAXes, they basically had big rooms with exterior windows and sunlight and plenty of space to do their thing.
Yep. There was a room with like an actual arcade in it, but I think they could have put that in a bigger room. I think that was.
But it was the best arcade that's ever been at a PAX. They had DDR machines.
Any of the PAXes that I have been to, that is the best arcade at a PAX. Obvious, it was like someone cut out took like one machine from every section of the MagFest arcade and put them into like one tiny room.
I said DDR machines because there were two at a PAX. I never thought I'd see a DDR machine at a PAX.
Yep, and there were two there, right? It's like they had a little row of, the Japanese sit-down ones.
Yep.
It was like there's like one pinball, some rhythm guys, It was decent. There was some fun times in there, but it was also small, cramped, dark, smelly because arcade, warm, really warm in there. So.
I think it and Tabletop free play needed more space.
I did not spend much time in there, but I looked at the selection and I said that is quality.
Yep. I even spent some time in Classic Console. I got about halfway through Castlevania 1 while I was waiting for you and Emily to do something.
I played some non-Duck Hunt light gun game.
Oh, yeah, the balloon game.
Yeah.
Tabletop had a fantastic space. It just wasn't big enough. Like, you could find tables on all the days but Saturday, but it was actually completely full on Saturday.
Yep. The way they set it up was they put all the free play tables in the middle and they surrounded it with vendors all around the edge, which was all right, kind of clever,
Yeah.
but subject to change.
If the PAX Arena had not been there and it had encompassed that entire space, I think it would have been about big enough based on that crowd.
Oh yeah, that would have been more than big enough, I think.
Yep.
Right?
I don't know if that would be big enough for a fully realized sold out PAX, but it would definitely have been enough for that PAX.
Sure. Yeah, and tabletop was its usual self, right? Free plays, first looks, tournament, everything was going down as usual, right?
We even entered a tournament.
Oh, let's tell the story of the tournament. So,
Oh my god.
yeah, just quickly. So Cat in the Box is a little trick-taking game, cute little trick-taking game. We've did an episode on it that you can listen to.
Yep, we both think we're really good at it.
There's a I think I'm pretty good at it. And there was a Cat in the Box tournament on the schedule, right? And I'm like, hey, we should enter that Cat in the Box tournament. And as long as it's only a 16-person tournament, 4 games of 4 people each of all the 4 winners play each other in one game. You only have to play 2 games of Cat in the Box.
Yep.
That's not a big time investment. And if you lose the first game, you only have to play 1 game of Cat in the Box. It's like such a small time investment. We love this game. Let's just go do it. We went early. We got tickets to be in the tournament, because only 16 people can enter. We came back after our panel. We entered the tournament. I was surprised that of the 16 people, most of the people had not played Cat in the Box.
I think me, Scott, and 2 other people literally had ever played the game before, and everyone else knew nothing about it and expected to be taught.
Right. It's like, all right, who enters a tournament not knowing how to play the game?
Apparently, almost everyone.
Right. But on the other hand, it's like, that's totally fine. It's like, I'm cool with that. Right?
Yep.
It's like,
Well, which led to a funny situation because they actually didn't really have enough enforcers to teach at scale. Me and Scott taught almost everyone
how to play.
We both taught everyone between the 2 of us.
Yeah. So in the first game I played, right, it was 2 people who didn't know how to play and a person who did know how to play.
Same as my first game.
Yeah. And so I played, and I was the one person who didn't know how to play was asking lots of questions, right? The person who did know how to play was pro, and the other person didn't know how to play. They understood the rules explanation perfectly. They played perfectly, correctly. They did not play well. The person who was asking all kinds of questions all the time and acted, and you thought they didn't know what the hell they were doing and they were playing poorly. They played extremely well. They were dominating. The person who was pro was playing as well as they could. They had the worst luck after game 1. That just after the second and third hands, they were just, they had such bad luck. They would have won.
Yep.
Because they played the best I've seen. They probably played better than I did, honestly. And then me, I played average with my conservative play, and I got lucky in game 4, and I won by 1 point. So how did your first game go?
Mine, similarly, I had 2 people who had never played before. One person who expressed constant annoyance that nobody knew how to play in the tournament, and I expected to play with pros or at least people who know what they're doing, and he was kind of mad about it. And then me, the guy who knew how to play and seemed to really want to win, he failed and caused the paradox 2 out of the 4 rounds. He just crashed.
1 paradox, but it was a 0, so it was fine.
Yep, he crashed and burned into dust. It was awful to watch. Of the 2 people who had not played, one of them, the person who won, and he beat me by 1 point. I learned afterward he had never played Cat in the Box, but this was a trick-taking game person. So I feel okay about that. But also, I think it's noteworthy. I think we found broadly where the limits of skill are in Cat in the Box, in that the scores were also close despite this wide range of player skills. There is a lot of luck in Cat in the Box. You got to play a lot of games to tease out pure skill. In the last round.
That weekend I really unlocked, and I feel like I haven't. I don't want to say I've solved Cat in the Box. But
coming into the final game,
I've got it locked. I've got it locked down.
Coming into the final hand in my round, I came into it up by 6 points, and I paradoxed solely because of the hand I had. There was no way out of that. But that happens.
So I'm in the finals, and we purposely played in separate games in the first round in hopes to take half of the seats in the finals.
Right, just like what happened with Tsuro.
That's right, but that did not happen. I went to the finals alone, right? And the person that beat Rim, another person, we're all sitting there chatting, having a good time. They seemed like nice people, right? We're waiting for the 4th game to end. Apparently, in the 4th game, there was 5 players. I guess they let an extra person in, so that game was weird, right? Mm-hmm. And they were also taking a long time, which had me nervous that maybe one of the players over there was a slowpoke, and I didn't really want to play with some slowpoke, right? hopefully a fast person from over there won, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, a person comes over finally from the fourth and final game to play in the finals with us. They seem chill. They were actually the partner of the pro cool person who should have won but was very unlucky in my first game. So I was like, oh, this is great. It was not some shitty person that came over. Well, so we start playing, right? And everything's going great. And we're in the first hand, like the third trick, right? And the person to my left, who I think was the person that beat Rim, points out that the person who was the partner of the pro person, right? The last person to come over, he's like, hey, you only have 4 cards in your hand and everyone else has 6. And I'm like, all right, who cares? I'm like, let's just start over. We just started 2 seconds ago, right? But we want to make sure the game is correct, right?
Yep.
You know,
plus in a game like that, like there's no way to recover from that kind of error in a card game.
Right. It's like all these cards are face down and hidden information, like cards that we discarded at the start of the game. It's like we can't be looking at them trying to figure out which card went where, right? It's like we can't be letting someone look at any card that's face down on the table, right? So it's like, we can't like correct this without some asterisk bullshit. Let's just restart. We'll all have a fair game. It's just a cat in the box tournament. Who gives a shit, right? It's like, let's just restart. Right. And the guy, the partner of the pro person, was like, no, I could fix this. We could fix this. Let's figure it out. Right. We can figure this out. And I'm like, why do we need to figure? It's like we just started. Why do you want to figure it out so bad? Right. It's like we can't. I'm like, just chill out and we'll restart. And he's like, no. We can definitely fix this. And he starts trying to fix it. And I'm like, why don't we just vote on it then if there's a disagreement? Right.
Yep.
Let's have these other 2 people decide. We've already basically decided. And he's like, you're only voting to restart because I'm winning. And I'm like, this is 3 tricks into a 4-hand game. And I'm just like, I just stood up and I said, I forfeit, bye.
Which I think was the right call, because that not only does this prove that you, in fact, were not advocating for this because you thought this guy was winning, but it also forces the correct outcome anyway. Restart the game.
It's like if the remaining people wanted to continue playing, they're now forced to restart. So it's like I didn't care about winning, and not only did I not care about winning, I definitely didn't want to play 3 more hands or 4 more hands of Cat in the Box with that guy. Right?
So I don't know if the game continued. I don't
know either.
I suspect the other players also forfeit or just gave up or were like walked away, because I walked over like. When
I called over the enforcer, I forfeited and I got up and I left before the enforcer got there.
So I went to pee after my game was over, and then I like chatted at the table while you were waiting for your game to start, and I walked away to do something else. I came back like pretty quick because I wanted to watch like the last hand, and based on how long I know Cat in the Box takes, the game should have still been going, and the table was empty, and I was just like, wow, either Scott just wiped the floor with them. I just assumed that you would like crush them or something. And then I come over and you're like, so I got a story.
I came in last place in the finals. I forfeited. Right? It's like I couldn't have done worse. But I feel like, I mean, I could. The alternative, right, was I could have sat there and been like, I could have forfeited and berated the guy, right, and been like, I'm leaving because I don't want to play 3 hands of Cat in the Box with a shitty person like you, right? But that's only gonna get, they're not gonna do that at PAX, right? That's something I would, I just got up and forfeited and like, bye, see ya, right? See GeekNights panel on quitting, right? It's like, if it was this, and the thing is, if it was that guy was taking it way too seriously, right?
Yeah.
But if I was taking that tournament as seriously as that guy was,
then you're in the right, and 2, that's when the judge comes over and you raise your complaint,
right,
and there's a formal response.
I wouldn't have been, if I was taking the tournament seriously, I wouldn't have been calling for a reset. I would have been calling for them to be disqualified. They fucked something up. They had 4 cards in the head. They should be disqualified. It's a super serious business, right? And you messed up. You're gone, right? If it was like a Magic tournament, and like at the start of the hand, like the other guy has like 2 cards instead of the number he's supposed to, I'd just be like, judge, disqualify this guy and give him a loss at least, right? Force the forfeit, right? Because if it's a serious tournament. So it's like, I didn't even go there with that guy.
Yeah, because it was a non-serious tournament. Like, calm down, buddy.
Nobody in history, if that game had completed, no one in history will remember or care who won Cat in the Box at PAX West 2023. So that's another story to help you with your gaming tournament behavior code, I guess.
So
etiquette.
I think we've gone on long enough. We had
We gave you like 3 Geek Nights worth episodes.
yeah, only one show this week because of this. We'll get back on our normal schedule next
we
week.
We just did a huge Geek Nights today. That's it.
Yep. And next week I think it'll be a Tuesday, Thursday.
A lot to go on. We could have, I could have just not told any of these things and held on to them and then forgotten them, and they'd never be in a Geek Nights.
Yeah.
Now they are. So
We that I don't know what it is about our brains, but Geek Nights, it's like my buffer gets cleared every time we do a show. The cache is gone.
Sakurai just did an episode about that on his little YouTube channel.
Oh.
I'll send it to you.
Because I remember reading that the Doom door study of when you go through a door. Yeah, when you go through a door in Doom.
Similar but different, yeah.
Yep. You kind of forget the context of what was going on the other side of that door.
Yep. All right. So PAX is coming back. I don't know. The question is, will the people come back enough to fill it the way they did before without the huge AAA industry presence?
Because I got to say, this level of crowdedness at a PAX, regardless of how healthy that is for PAX and the industry and the future of like these conventions, as an attendee, this was one of the better PAXes I've ever been to. Like it felt like 2008, 2009, 2010 PAX West. Like it wasn't.
If you're an Expo Hall aficionado, you'd be disappointed, right? There weren't that many big booths worth going to for AAA.
Even though for me, this was a great Expo Hall. I saw a bunch of games I want to play.
I saw a bunch of cool indie games. Not too many. I could have would have been nice to see more, but I saw enough to wish list on Steam and then take business cards from and write down in my notes and then leave. And that was enough, right? I need more than that. But if you're looking for more than that, you would have been disappointed.
Yep.
Right? If you want to wait in line.
If you were the average attendee of PAX East, you would have hated this PAX West. Because one thing about this PAX West, tabletop was pretty full until the close every night. PAX East, is empty after the Expo Hall closes.
Well, I mean, guess now, there are times where it's hard to get a table at PAX East.
Yeah, but
tabletop.
generally around within an hour or two after the Expo Hall closing at PAX East, because almost everyone who goes to PAX East in our experience is one-day badge people, PAX East kind of just empties out at night.
Well, the tabletop zone does not, which is where I work. And you're also working, so you don't see it then. But that's, it basically when the Expo Hall closes from 6 to, 8, 9, it's like this prime time where it's full. But then when it gets later, not everyone's in there till midnight.
True.
Right? So when you start to getting to 9, 10, 11, 12 is when you'll get.
But walk anywhere else in the con and it's just crickets.
Oh yeah,